Good evening and welcome to the Cincinnati Preschool Promise Preschool Chat. I am Brittany Pina, the Quality Improvement Manager with Cincinnati Preschool Promise, and your host for this evening's chat about how to create art at home with your children. Leading this discussion, we have the talented artist, businesswoman, and cultural activist, Toylin O'Neill Turner. She has over 25 years of experience in the arts and education industry and is currently the founding director of the Robert O'Neill Multicultural Art Center. Welcome, Toylin.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here with you all and excited to share today.
Awesome. If you would like, please give us a little bit about yourself and your background and lead us into our discussion this evening.
Okay, so I have been in the arts probably since I was born. My father was an artist and an activist in Cincinnati. He was part of the art consortium that lived in the West End for over 25 years, and it was an African-American art center. I am now opening up a new art center in the West End at the historic Regal Theater. It also will be an African-American art center and multicultural art organization that serves artists in our city, as well as helps to develop the next generation of creatives. And so excited to be living in his legacy. My artwork that I typically do is mixed media, and I'll share some of that with you guys. And as we talk about the crafts that we can do with stuff at our house.
Awesome. Thank you. So you come with a lot of legacy here. So we're excited to see the fun and creative ideas you give us to share with our little ones with creating art at home.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you ready for me just to jump on in?
Yeah,
Okay, exciting, exciting. Well, I thought of two things that people kind of take for granted. And you have to excuse the puppy. I think he's eating one of them, but that's okay. You know, the puppy, kids, everybody can enjoy these things. The first thing I wanted to show is some of my art. And as I kind of explained that I do what they call mixed media. And I'm gonna move over here and just kind of share. I don't know if you can see this. This is a combination of painting and collage and mixed media. And so if you kind of see it, even though it has a glare, I apologize for that. It's a painting, but I use pieces of paper and scraps, magazines, and various things to kind of put this piece together. One of the things that I love about being a mixed media artist is able to use like whatever I want to. Like, you know, I can use old trinkets, I can use things that people consider trash and kind of make something new with it. And so today I thought we would do something with a paper bag. You know, we kind of take paper bags for granted. You know, when you go to the grocery store, you typically get plastic bags, but you can ask for paper bags to be eco-friendly, as well as, you know, to help you carry your groceries a little bit better, but you can also use them for crafts. So when I was little, sometimes we would make costumes out of paper bags. You know, we cut a hole in the top and then we put arms on the side. But I wanted today work on doing a puppet with a paper bag. And so I'm going to start off with a basic paper bag that you get from the grocery store. This is like from Prime. Basically, nothing's fancy about it. And what I've done to start it off was I drew a little face on it. Not like a fancy face. You're thinking you can let your kids draw a face on it. I used a marker. You can use paint. And, you know, this basically, the paper bag is free, right? You can get paint from the dollar store, which is usually where I get a lot of my arts and crafts supplies from because they're very cheap and they're very easy to get. And so basically I drew on a face here. So he kind of has a mouth and an opening part of the bag. You can kind of see how that works. And then I like to use sponges. With little kids, a lot of times paintbrushes are a little tedious and they're not really easy to manage, but you can just take a regular sponge and cut it and kind of make a paintbrush out of it. And you're able to kind of, the kids can maneuver it better and they can kind of paint the bag. So I'm going to grab some paint and show you just how to use the sponge. So I'm going to use some red paint. And I'm using acrylic paint. They do sell this at the 99-cent store. I wouldn't recommend this for kids, but they do have tempera paint. And tempera paint is perfect for kids. It's water-based. It's easy to wash out your clothes. I don't have any tempera paint here, so I'm going to use acrylic. But basically, I'm putting some paint on the sponge, and you could have it in a bowl for your kids. And basically I'm gonna use it to color in my lips. And so basically, all I'm doing is I'm just using the sponge and kind of smoothing it around. So I'll show you real simple stuff. Anybody can do this. Kids can do this. And I'm making kind of the mouth. And then I'm going to color the inside of the mouth. And the cool thing with the acrylic, the tempera paint is they can get it on their hands. And, you know, most kids like to be a little messy with paint. That's kind of the fun part of being an artist, is to be messy. And so I'm just going to kind of color this in a little bit. And then I'm going to share with you. The other craft that I was going to share while I let this dry a little bit is how we can use toilet paper rolls. We all have them. We all use toilet paper, but I like to make shaker-rays out of them. And I'll quickly show that as well as I kind of get this paint down. And I'm not kind of doing my best artistic stuff. That's why I showed you my good art first. But I want to just be able to kind of share with you, you know, that for kids, you know, and saving paper and not necessarily using recyclable materials. It's a cool way to teach your kids a lesson about recyclable things and how they can be multi-purposed. You could also talk about the environment a little bit. And even though they're little people, you know, they may be interested in, this is a good way to kind of introduce them into being eco-friendly. So I'm not kind of doing this super cool and fancy, but basically you can put your hand inside the bag. The kids have decorated it. You can kind of create a puppet, you know, so you can kind of, you know, they can kind of make up little stories, and you can kind of have various ones, and you make a puppet out of the paper bag. So the second craft is the toilet paper roll. So we all have toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls. And basically what I've done is I glued some paper to it. And I painted it so I could be a little bit prepared for you guys. So what I'm doing, I glued a piece of the bag to it earlier. On both sides, I would glue that. And then I would get some rice or some beans. I would have the young person decorate this any way they wanted to. They could put stickers on it. And then when you put the rice and beans with it, you can shake it. And so you also can use tape with it as well. So I'm just going to do some tape. I'm going to get some, I'm going to put some noise in it. Rice, beans, any dried things you can use to put inside this shaker ray. I'm going to put some rice in it. And this could be a whole lesson on musical instruments, sounds, beats. You know, you can make bigger sizes with the paper towel rolls. And then the young person is able to make the noise with it. And they, of course, would decorate it a lot more fancy than me, but just kind of showing you how you use a paper towel roll to make an instrument. You know, and this is something that you can do. The larger things you put in it, the more noise it's going to be and the more dense it's going to be. And so when you put rice in there, it's a softer sound versus like when you put like stones, you could put stones from the yard or the garden or outside. You can get some gravel. You can even put like a combination of dirt and rice and some stones in there, and it kind of makes a different sound. So those are my two quick crafts. Not really intricate to do, not over fancy. I was trying to think of things that you could do really quickly. Like I said, you can get paint from the dollar store. You can use crayons and markers also. And this is just different levels. You can add things to the paper bag, like if you wanted to add found objects, like you wanted to add a paper towel, make a unicorn, or, you know, you could do that as well. Stick this up here, glue it. Then you have like a little unicorn. You know, and you can make up monsters or different creatures, and you kind of can test out your kids' artistic ability.
Okay, so a couple of things. I love the idea of eco-friendly and just talking to children about using multi-purpose material, recyclable material. Um, there's a whole lesson around recycling that we like to do with our preschoolers. And so that's awesome that we can then create um, uh, art and other musical things with these recyclable materials. Now you talked about paint and making messes. You know, we are at home, and some of us parents are just like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" But you mentioned using the temporal paint, which is a washable paint, easy to clean. So if it does make a mess, no big deal. Little Dawn soap and water, we're good. Do you have any ideas or recommendations on maybe even creating some type of paint or watercolor at home?
You can use food coloring, well, too, with a little bit of flour, and you can kind of make it's more of a thicker, pasty type of substance, more like clay.
Okay.
But it could be used to little baking soda, a little flour, a little food coloring, and you kind of mix it all up, and you can kind of make clay out of that. Um,
Okay.
I have not been a big fan of like the paint you make out of there. You can make paint out of soap too. You can use liquid soap. I don't know if that's very safe for kids because I think they like to put their hands in their mouth. But
Right.
there's lots of really cool YouTube videos on how to create eco-friendly art activities for your kids. Another one that I really do like is using like old socks. And I didn't get a chance to make that for you, but you can make hand puppets out of old socks. And so as the kids kind of wear and tear their socks, you can actually buy some little googly eyes at the dollar store and attach them to the sock and actually make a hand puppet. So there's lots of stuff just laying around. We are located currently right now at the Lincoln Recreation Center, which is downtown in the West End. We have free art classes for kids from 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday nights. And you might say, oh, Friday night, but this is a cool time for kids to have something to do and to be sociable and to do art. And we try to do a lot of eco-friendly arts and crafts. We will be doing arts and crafts um, every month, the third and the fourth Friday of every month for free from that time. And then we're going to have dance classes and other interactive programs that families can participate in with their kids. But the goal is to make art an experience and not necessarily spend a lot of money on materials and let the young people grow into learning how to make art and do art by experiment. If I had more time, I could have made my paper bag man more elaborate and more detailed, but I wanted to just show how simple and how it's okay to have your kids just do fun stuff and you're not spending a lot of money to do it.
Sure,
They can
sure.
use markers if you don't want to be messy at home. You can definitely use markers. You can use crayons. I think paint is an excellent experience for kids to really learn how to manage materials. It's also, patience because paints you have to be a little bit more critical about how you lay it down. And so kids learn discipline through painting. They also learn structure. It's also a good time to teach about shapes. And so there's a lot of things you can do in a quick project of painting a paper bag
Mhm.
to teach a lot of lessons that are reinforcing what they're learning in preschool.
Yes. So you touched on a couple of things, a lot of things actually. I'm just going to jump over to the puppets. We use it a lot in the preschool classroom. So again, it could be, taking that learning experience from the classroom to the home. Not only do we use it to touch on academic things, but also social and emotional. We have puppets that have different expressions to help the children better articulate how they may be feeling at a particular time. And so that was great that you mentioned that. We also use the puppets just to go along with storytelling. It's a little bit more engaging and entertaining and fun to listen and act in when you're using puppets with stories. So I love the ideas of the puppets. And now, you gave us a simple and easy way to create these puppets at home using these recyclable materials. What are some other learning points you feel like children can pick up on through art?
But I think art is relaxing. One of the things that we know that's so different from my generation is that kids have a lot more intensity and stress. What's on television, what they're exposed to sometimes. Um, Art is one of those things that kind of takes you away from reality, but at the same time, you can be a realist and you can paint things that are realistic. But it does give you a sense of, I always say it gives me a sense of peace to paint or to do art. And I think we need to give our kids opportunities to just relax. And I think art is an awesome space to kind of turn down the technology a little bit.
Mhm.
There is digital art, which is also a cool thing to do, but just that tactile touching and feeling of the materials and motivating themselves to kind of be creative and not have boundaries because this is their idea and their imagery. I also think art is great. You mentioned about therapy and really being able to use that as a tool to have conversations with kids about what's on their brains and what's on their minds and what's bothering them. I've always been interested in art therapy, and I think that parents have an ability to use art to have that communication to kind of find out what's going on sometimes, emotionally, and what they're happy about, what
Mhm.
they're sad
Mhm.
about. And a lot of times when I teach younger kids, I would say, paint me a happy picture, and then some kids would have like the sun because they think the sun is happy, but they might have a sad face. That gives
Mhm.
you a dialogue that you wouldn't have. And it's not abrasive, it's not judgmental, it's very calm, and it gives kids the opportunity to explore what they're feeling and doing. So,
Great, great. You mentioned just talking about feelings and things of that nature. Um, Sometimes we have children who may shy away from, we have an art center in the classroom. So they may shy away from going, choosing to work into the art center or, sitting at home and creating some art crafts with parents. Can you give us a little uh, tip on how to maybe initiate engagement from young people into the art industry or just into the art center?
definitely, definitely. I think that there's so many different mediums. A lot of times, places stick with coloring and markers and crayons and coloring activities. I think, there's clay, there's kids like bling sometimes, at least the ones I work with, like bling. There's so many different things. And I mean, you can get the bling from old jewelry. A lot of times when we're talking about the whole recycling thing, when we buy jewelry, they break. That's kind of the mixed media pieces of using stuff that you have that might not be good for what you used to use it for, but incorporating in art. I think kids like sculpture. They like to build sometimes. And so you can use a combination of what they're used to, like blocks, but also have them add other things to it. And glue. There's a fascination with glue. You got to get the right, safe, friendly kind. But kids love glues, gluing
Right,
things,
right,
scrapbooking and collaging, and taking things that they know and putting them together is a cool way to kind of be engaged. So every kid's not going to be Picasso or the Jacob Lawrence, but you may have a kid that likes to use on paper and create things. There's origami and there's all these different art forms that kind of give kids a sense of touching the arts that doesn't necessarily mean they have to do one medium. Sometimes as adults, we go with the easy thing.
yes, yes.
But I love YouTube because there's so many tutorials on there that show parents how to do something that looks a little bit more intricate when it's done, but really wasn't intricate at all, to do. And so I suggest that you do research and look out there for easy crafts for kids and, age appropriate things. There's a
Right,
lot of art integration things. I think, when we look at how to collect literature with art, telling a story and then having the kids draw a picture about what you read to them, or having a young person, make up a story, with math, again, it's the shapes. And, with science, you actually can do color making, how to mix colors and learn how, red and blue make purple, and then mix colors to kind of have the color scale, the magentas and so there's so many lessons. And I think everything's not about creating a masterpiece and the expectation that every kid's going to be like the best drawer or painter, but really exploring how to use the art to kind of do so many other things when it comes to education.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head with everything is not going to come out as a masterpiece. And so sometimes we as adults are so focused on the end project, we sort of lose um the enthusiasm from the child, of what they were able to create or what they were thinking and feeling in the moment of this creation. Um, I think collages is probably a great way to start, using the various materials, as you mentioned. We may have once used this as a necklace or a charm, but it may have a different purpose now, with this collage that we're going to create. So I really like that idea. I'm going to check in with the team to see if they have any burning questions around art at home.
I think your ideas are fantastic. I can just see them, children having so much fun with them. One of the biggest things parents and art have is they don't want to make huge mess. So there's always like the basic ones that parents have, like, if you put the trash bag down as your liner, then you can just roll it all up and you're clean. What are your suggestions for parents on the quick way to clean up the messes or to kind of limit those messes so you can have lots of fun, but maybe not tear the whole house up?
Yeah, well, I think, here's another recycle thing, get an old blanket, our old sheet that's, kind of not the guest sheet that you would have your company sleep on, but one that, you still have lingered around and use it as your art sheet, lay it on the floor, then let the kids do their art on it. And then also when the weather is great, I also think doing outdoor stuff with art is awesome because you accomplish kids being part of nature and them observing things. A lot of times too with collage, I will do like a photocopy of an image, like a coloring image that, like a coloring page, and then have the kids actually put the collage pieces of paper or colors inside of the coloring page. And so that's really kind of using the glue. You can use a Q-tip for the glue. Some kids don't like their hands sticky and some do. But I think creating some things in your home that are your art stuff, you have an old sheet, you have a old t-shirt that the kids wipe their hands on when they get done with the art, that becomes their art shirt, kind of like their apron, and just designate some things that you can allow them to be free because art is one of those things that gives you that ability to have that freedom, so I think that even the messiness of it, if you can designate a space or do it outdoors, using chalk outside is cool. But creating those zones where they get to have that creative freedom and also the ability to kind of be messy a little bit. And I always think paint is better than mud. I don't know, I'm just kind of biased on that. Like you can let them play in the mud or you can let them do a painting. You make your choice as a parent, which one you want to clean up.
Oh, wow, that was a great question and excellent responses in terms of, using a note sheet. Who thought to use that? And I have them, holes in them and everything, still,
Mhm.
folded up in a linen closet, don't have any other purpose for them, but can't seem to let them go. So that's a great idea. Paint shirts, we often, as preschool teachers, we ask for parents to bring us their old t-shirts so that we can use them for smocks,
Right.
when we're doing some of our messier activities and experiences. And it's so funny that you mentioned the mud or the paint because weird enough, I would be like, let's play in the mud. um, but yeah, love that. Love that. Any other questions or thoughts from the team?
Hello, thank you for joining us this evening. This is Kenitra. I had a question. We're getting into the holidays. I just didn't know if you had any cool ideas around holiday crafts that people
Yes.
can think of, or could, ideas to do, even as we get into the new year, cool ways to have kids even make, like, I know people do vision boards, but anything that's cool or age appropriate to help kids plan what they want to do as they grow up.
Definitely. Well, I definitely love vision boards because I love collage. But I do think there's some things that you could do that actually, they have those ornaments that are clear at Michael's. Sometimes they do have them at the dollar store. They're just clear bulbs. Um, even doing that as an image board versus just doing a flat paper, like, cutting out little pictures. There's a material you can use, regular Elmer's glue, and you can attach things to the actual ornament. And then maybe every year the kid creates an ornament that's kind of has some aspiration. You can use words on there. You can kind of do fabric on there. I mean, just anything kind of laying around that's would be smooth, that you can kind of smooth out with the glue. Or there's a product called Mod Podge, which I am in love with, and probably every crafter loves Mod Podge because it kind of gives a gloss to whatever you kind of glue down. But you could do something different than just doing it on paper. Do it on a box. Sometimes you go to stores like a shoe box and do a shoe box, where you take an old shoe box and you do the same thing you would do on paper with the collage and the vision board, but then they can put their stuff in it, their toys or their trinkets, or, it could be a box where everybody puts something in there every week. That they've accomplished, and then you can share it as a family later on, but it's been decorated by the family with everybody's dreams and aspirations for the new year. And then I am a huge Kwanzaa person. So one of the things about Kwanzaa that's kind of cool, there's a principal every day, 7 days after Christmas, starting on the 26th to the 1st, and each day has a meaning. And there's usually lots of stuff on the internet with crafts. Like there's Kuumba is the day that I typically love because that's the creativity day. But there's a day that's faith. There's a day that's working together, unity. And so you could do some art activities with your family around those days of Kwanzaa, and celebrate what family is about, because Kwanzaa is about bringing family and connectivity together, and it's about making stuff and being together versus buying stuff. So I think there's lots of cool things you can do. I think looking at some of the traditional art ways we do things and doing them on different mediums, meaning like a shoebox, or like, taking an old, I didn't even talk about textiles, how you can make quilts of old t-shirts. You don't have to sew perfectly, but you can teach your kids like a basic one stitch. You'll need to know how to sew one day. Some button will fall off of something, right? And, teaching them how to work with that, even though they're little, they have some kids safety needles like at Michael's that you can use that are a little bit not as aggressive, but you can actually glue your quilt together too. They have fabric glue, and you can actually cut squares of old t-shirts and things that mean something and kind of make a family quilt.
Good ideas. Good ideas. The holidays is right around the corner. Anyone
Thank you
else?
for those ideas. I really like the shoebox idea for storage of a dream capsule type of deal. So that was really nice.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Sydney. Like everyone has said, thank you for joining us. So, I come from the school where we used to do macaroni art.
Mhm.
So, is there any way you can paint it where the paint stays on safely? I could never get that to work in daycare.
Yes, yes. So the problem is the water-based paint and the organic pasta, it absorbs it, and so it starts to fade really quick. It's like doesn't last, because the pasta, even though it's dry, still kind of absorbs the paint and it falls in little cracks. I know exactly what you're meaning. What could be done is you could pre-color the pasta, meaning like you could put it in a cup with some water, um, and maybe use some food coloring or some Ritz dye, and dye the pasta before the kids get to it. So like make some little cups, get you some Ritz dye and soak the pasta. And now you would think, okay, you can't put a whole bunch of water. It's got to be more of the color and the dye than the water, because of course the pasta is can get wet. But you can pre-dye it. You just have to use more of just the dye, just a teeny bit of water to mix the dye, and it will help it kind of stick a little bit better. And then another way to do it is to, now they have, recently I'm a gluten-free person. They have sweet potato pasta. They have green pasta, maybe buy the pasta that's already colored. And you won't get a variety of colors, but that's where their creativity can come to create the rest of it. Maybe they use the pasta for certain three-dimensional aspects, and then they use markers and crayons to do the rest of the imagery around it. So like the green pasta could be the top of the tree, but they could color the tree branch, or the tree bark. So they do have some colored pasta now based on all us lovely dietary different folks.
Thank you for that. I have now found a new way for my husband to throw me out of the kitchen.
Right, great. I'm gonna have all these cups of pasta trying to diet.
All right. Well, we thank you so much. If you would, you mentioned some free sessions on the third and fourth Fridays of the month. Can you tell
Yes.
us again about that and the location?
So we are at the Lincoln Center in the West End, the Lincoln Recreation Center, which is on Lynn Street. I believe it's 1027 Lynn. And we have free art classes. It's called Arts for Us. And it is totally free classes. Families can come from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. any Friday of the third and fourth Friday of the month. And then starting in February, we will have art classes on Saturdays. So right now we have this month and next month we'll have them on Fridays, but then we'll eventually have some Saturday classes as well. So it's the Lincoln Recreation Center. Just ask for the ROMAC. And we are living in that building until we build our home in the new Regal Theater.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you sharing your wonderful masterpieces and how quick and simple it can be, and maybe even extending it, to the entire family and creating some memories and experiences together. So we thank you for that. Please join us at our next preschool chat, which is going to be on Thursday, December the 29th at 6 p.m. And the subject there would be how to create a masterpiece. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you.